everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's video is a request that I've gotten several times about how I planned my trip to Japan. Now, I took my trip to Japan a year ago, so I took that trip in April of 2019. But I've gotten a lot of questions from viewers about what did I do for planning, how did things go, and things like that. So I thought I'd put this video together to show you guys how I planned the trip and talk to you a little bit about the itinerary that I had when I was on the trip and things of that nature. So the first thing I want to say is that there were 3 YouTube channels that were completely invaluable to me when I was planning my trip. The first one was Linda's channel, Me's Crazy Experiences. The second one is Amy's channel called Cakes with Faces. And the third one is Paolo's channel called Paolo from Tokyo. All 3 of those YouTube channels really helped me plan a great trip full of activities that I wanted to do and helped me fill my itinerary, and also made me feel really comfortable about going to Japan. Because the question that I get the most often is, do you need to speak Japanese to be able to go? The answer is no. I only knew 2 basic words, konnichiwa and arigato. Those were the only 2 words that I knew when I went. If you had talked to me right after I came back, there were probably some more words that I learned, but since it's been a year ago, those words have kind of gone to the wayside. But I stayed in heavily populated, heavy tourism areas, so it was not a problem for me. There was all signage was in English and Japanese. A lot of the restaurants had menus that were also in even other languages other than English. They had 5 or 6 different languages, a lot of Chinese as well, so a lot of Japanese, Chinese, and English everywhere you went. So there was no language barrier issue. I tell people I actually had a harder language barrier when I went to France, because that was more difficult to communicate than it was in Japan. And they also have a lot of picture menus, and you just kind of point at what you want. So if you're in a restaurant and you don't speak Japanese and the person helping you doesn't speak English, it's fine. You've got a menu that's got pictures and it's also got English things on it, so it's really easy to order. And I would say just don't be concerned about that at all. Do not let that hinder you. Another thing I use on my phone is the Google Translate app, which is great. You can take pictures of things. If for whatever reason you came across something that was not also translated to English, you can take a picture with the Google Translate app and it'll translate for you. It's a really great app. So, that being said, talking about my trip. So the first thing you have to do is basically decide when you're going to go. And for me, a big determining factor for when I was going to go was, what are the crowd levels like and what are they going to be like at Tokyo Disneyland? Because part of my trip was going to be spent at Tokyo Disneyland. And if you've ever been to a Disney park when it's really crowded, you know how miserable that can be. So I looked at the crowd calendars, and since I was going to Japan, I thought, why not try to go at the same time as the cherry blossoms being in bloom? And so it turned out that April was the perfect time. And I can just say from having gone, the crowds were perfect. Crowd levels were totally bearable and awesome. The weather was amazing. We caught the tail end of the cherry blossoms blooming, so we got to have that experience in Japan. So that was the perfect timing for going. You will definitely want to avoid times like Golden Week, it's like in the US. If you have any big holidays or school holidays or things like that, you want to avoid that because most people are off and that's when they're going to be out and about doing things. The locals will be. So we made the decision to go in April. And what I did next was I started looking for airfare. And my home airport is Charlotte. And so Charlotte's flights to Tokyo are extremely expensive. And when I say extremely expensive, I'm talking $1,500 to $1,600 round trip per person. And so I didn't really want to pay that per person. So I was looking at, what cities are the best for flying to Tokyo. And it turns out that LAX is very cheap compared to Charlotte to fly to Tokyo. Of course, LA is on the other side of the country from me, but I was looking at it, and 2 flights to Tokyo round trip cost me $1,299. So $1,300 for 2 people round trip to Tokyo, where out of Charlotte, 1 ticket round trip would have cost me more than that. And the flight from LA was about 10 hours. So how did I get to LA? Well, from Charlotte to most major cities in the United States, you can get pretty cheap airfare, but I also have a lot of airline miles, and so we used miles to get from Charlotte to LA. So that part didn't cost us anything. And then what we did is we stayed at a Marriott close to the airport that night when we got there, because we also are Marriott card holders, and so with the Marriott card you get a free night per year, and we used that free night at the Marriott airport. And so we stayed there, and then next day went back to the airport, and from there we flew to Tokyo. So that was how we saved some money on our airfare. Would I do that again? Maybe not, because it did make for a very long flight back. The flight there wasn't so bad, but flying back was a little tougher because we had to fly to LA. And you know, when you get there and go through customs, at that point you just want to be home. But then we had another flight from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast. But that being said, that was what we did, and price-wise it worked out really great. So once you decide where you want to go and what you're going to do, you want to decide what your accommodation is going to be like. For accommodation, we always like to choose somewhere, when we're in a big city, we like to choose somewhere that's close to the train station or the subway station. And so we chose the Courtyard by Marriott Tokyo Station. It was an amazing hotel. It was super clean. The service was great. It was literally steps away from the Tokyo Station, which made it easy for getting around the city. And there were lots of shops and restaurants very close by. And the thing for us is that we're Marriott's, we're kind of Marriott loyal. We try to stay at a Marriott because, like I mentioned earlier, we have the Marriott cards, and we have a lot of Marriott points, both from traveling from the cards, and my husband travels for business a good bit, so we have a lot of points for them. And so their thing is, when you redeem 4 nights of points, you get the 5th night free. So we got 5 nights for free at the Courtyard Tokyo Station. And what we did the first day is we got there late Friday night, got checked in to the room, and went downstairs and just had dinner at the restaurant down in the hotel. But then the next day we got up and we walked to the Imperial Gardens, which were very close by, the Imperial Palace, Imperial Garden. And that was a really cool experience because we got to see some old architecture and some gardens and things like that. And then after that, we went to the Shinjuku Garden, which is where they have a lot of gorgeous cherry blossoms to see. And so that was a really enjoyable part of the trip, just taking pictures and seeing it all and seeing everybody in the park, having a really awesome day. And so we spent a lot of time there. Now on the way there, we stopped and ate at Coco Curry for lunch, which I had seen both in Cakes with Faces video and Paolo from Tokyo's video. And Coco Curry, oh my gosh, it was so amazing. I could eat there once a week if we had one of those around here. It was just delicious. Just fried meat with gravy and rice. Amazing. And they had this salad dressing that was really tasty. But anyway, so that's what we did for lunch. And then that afternoon, after we had walked around the gardens for a while, we went to Akihabara. And that is where Linda's videos from these crazy experiences helped me a lot, knowing where to go and what I wanted to see as far as doll shops that were there. And so I got to see a lot of cool things. I saw the A-Zone shop. I saw the Volks store. We also went to, there's an electronics store called Bit Camera, and so my husband's really into electronics, and so we went there. And inside of Bit Camera, they also have like an aisle of toys. It's not just cameras, like it sounds like it would be just cameras, but they had some toys there. And so I got to look at the Leica-chan dolls, and so that was really cool, because one thing I like to do on trips, Japan has actual doll stores like your A-Zone and your Volks and things like that, but I also like to look at Playline dolls when I'm on a trip. And so that was really cool that I was able to go in and see a lot of the Playline dolls that they had in the area. So we visited a couple of department stores while we were in Akihabara because we were looking for the electronics for my husband, and so I also took advantage and looked at the dolls while I was there. And so then after that, we went back to our room for the night. And the next day that morning we went to the Asakusa Shrine. And so that's, we took the train there, and that was a very interesting experience. You do this thing where you pay 100 yen and you shake a thing and you get a stick out, and then from the stick you pull your fortune out of the box. And if your fortune is good, you take it with you, and if your fortune is bad, you tie it there and you leave your bad fortune there. Well, mine was pretty bad because when you're shaking, you think about, it's kind of like a prayer you want to say, what you're thinking of or what you're wishing for. And so mine is, when I say something like that, it's always for my good health, because as you guys know, if you've watched my videos, I do have MS, and so my health is a bit scary at times. And I've got my fortune out and it says those with poor health is not going to improve or something like that. I left that SOB there. I tied that thing to the thing and left it there. I'm like, you can stay here. So anyway, I didn't bring my fortune home, so I left my bad fortune there at the shrine. But after that, we went to Ikebukuro because I wanted to check the other Azon store. I had wanted a Kiki Pop, and they didn't have the Kiki Pop that I wanted at the Akihabara store, so I went to the other store. They still didn't have the one I wanted there, but they had a different one that I liked better, so I went ahead and got her, and I ended up getting her a different wig and outfit to make her a little more kind of what I wanted. So that was that girl, and that's why we went over there. And then we had ramen at this really delicious restaurant that I had seen on Paolo from Tokyo's his channel, and it was amazing. The way you order it, you go in and you sit at a little booth and you eat it. Again, English or Japanese is not necessary. They had menu options in English, and it was just a really cool experience to do that. And they hand the ramen to you through the booth, and you really never see the person there, but it was really cool, and it was really delicious too, so that was cool. And then after that, we went to Sunshine City, which is like a huge mall complex over there, and I discovered there was a Toys R Us still in Japan, because at this time all the Toys R Us's here in the States had closed, and so I went in there and checked again Japanese playline dolls and toys and things like that. So that was really cool. So on the third day, we took a Mount Fuji tour, and I really had wanted to go to Mount Fuji, and so I just booked one of these bus tours. It left not too far from our hotel. We actually walked to a different Marriott that was up the street, and they met us in the lobby there. We got on the bus, took us to Mount Fuji. You don't actually, with this tour, we didn't actually go up to Mount Fuji. We went to a park that was down below, and we got to see it. And then we went to another park where we got to go up a mountain and get some more amazing views. And that was just a really cool experience to do that and to see it. And just, I really loved it. We also, with that excursion, or that trip, that day excursion, we did a traditional lunch at a restaurant, which there was a lot of seafood, and I don't eat seafood, so that part was they did have some chicken and rice and things like that, but I probably, if I were going to do it again, wouldn't include the lunch, just because of all the seafood, and if you choose a tour without a lunch, they just kind of drop you in town and you go do your own thing. And so that probably would have been easier. But when we travel, we generally take at least one day trip like that, one excursion where they take you somewhere so you can kind of see things that you wouldn't be able to access maybe by train or public transportation as easily. And it's just better to have somebody guide you and take you through everything. And so that night when we got back, we actually went to Moe's Burger, which I have seen on several of the channels, on both Cakes with Faces and Paolo from Tokyo. That burger, y'all, was so good. Oh my gosh. I couldn't believe it. Like, you don't go to Japan to eat a burger, but go to Japan and eat a burger, because those burgers are fantastic. I keep thinking about it. Like, I just said Coco Curry was the best thing I ate there, but that Moe's Burger was pretty close. That thing was so good. I loved it. But anyway, we did that. We went to Mr. Donut because I had wanted to go to Mr. Donut, and I think I said we went to electronics shop and looked again for he was trying to buy a set of speakers that every single electronics store sold out of. And when we were at this one in particular, he asked the guy, you know, could he buy the display, and this was the answer. So I think you guys know what that means. So even if you can't communicate in Japanese, I think everybody, I mean, that's pretty universal. He couldn't buy those speakers, so he didn't get them. That night we also went to Character Street. So Character Street is in Tokyo Station, and they have shops for everything. They have Hello Kitty, Pokemon, and of course I went to the Ghibli shop, and I have a video of that. I have a whole playlist of Japan videos from my trip, and so you can check that shop out there. That was really cool. I had wanted to do the studio tour for that, but I did not buy the tickets in time. So that is one thing. If you're planning this trip to Japan, you have to be on the money, on the nose, on time if you want the Studio Ghibli. I always say Ghibli, I don't remember which one it is. If you want those studio tour tickets, you have to be right on time to get those because it sells out very fast. And then if you don't get them, your only other option is to pay a tour to take you there, and it's a lot more expensive, and it includes some other stuff that I haven't read great reviews about, so we ended up not doing that. But I did go to the Character Street, and I loaded up on merch, and I was able to get a video of the store inside, so that was pretty cool. And another thing when you're shopping in Japan is that most shops will do duty-free. Now the A-Zone store will not. They will not do duty-free, but most of the other shops will. Volks did duty-free, so they take your passport just to make sure you're not a Japanese resident and you don't have to pay the taxes and the duties on the thing. And the Character Street will do that too, but you have to go to a central location to sign up for duty-free, and then you show that card as you go around to the different shops on Character Street. So you can save yourself a good bit of money by making sure to take advantage of all the duty-free opportunities that you have. Now, on the fourth day, Linda from Mi's Crazy Experiences was so nice enough to meet us to go to the Smart Doll store. And we met her at the train station, and we went to this really cool ramen place. She said it was very authentic. It's one of the only places that has cheese ramen, and that was really cool. So that's what she ordered, and so that's what I ordered too. And so I had a really great time getting to know her because she's my favorite YouTuber. So how cool was it to get to go and spend the day with her? And then she took us on a walk down the river all the way to the Smart Doll store, which is where, of course, I bought my Smart Doll. And we did all that. And then after we left the store, we went to check out Junie Moon store, which I had always wanted to go to. And then we found a coffee shop where we had a great coffee and pastry. And then Linda was kind enough to do an interview with me for my channel. And that interview I'll link below, because she has her finger on the pulse of everything like Japan dolls, and like she's amazing, and I appreciate so much all the work she puts into everything to share that stuff with all of us. And so, and I was just so thankful and grateful that she was able to meet me and that she was willing to, and I just had a great afternoon with her. So that was really cool also because she's a local, she lives there, and so that was neat to see, you know, everything through her eyes while we were there. And so that night we ate close to the hotel. There was a New Zealand steakhouse right around the corner from our hotel. Y'all, it was amazing. It was so good. But anyway, so the next day was the day that we got up and we left for Tokyo Disneyland Resort. And so Tokyo Disneyland is kind of on the outskirts of Tokyo. And I did book a separate Tokyo Disneyland package because you heard me say we did 5 nights at the Marriott. Well, I always like to stay on site at Disney, and I always like to do it at the end of the trip. So we did our last 2 nights at Tokyo Disneyland. We stayed at the Disneyland Hotel, and I got the full package from Tokyo Disneyland, and so it was $1,600. So that included 3 days of tickets. It included breakfast on 2 days, and it included a bunch of fast passes. I want to say we got like 10 fast passes, or maybe it was like 16 fast passes, which was really handy to have because there were just a couple of lines that were kind of long that we broke them out for, and they still have the old paper style fast passes, but when you're going to be there for such a limited time, you definitely want to make the most of it. But Tokyo Disneyland is a lot smaller than, say, Disney World. Disney World's my home park. They have 2 parks. They have Tokyo Disney Sea, and then they have the Disneyland. And so we were able to go to Disneyland the first day, spent the whole day there because we got there super early. They take your luggage and then you just go to the parks, and then when your room is ready and you leave the park, you just go check into your room and your luggage is already there. So that was a really great service. And then they have this really cool Disney train that takes you from that area to the Disney Sea area, because we were staying at the Disneyland Hotel, so we were right next to Disneyland. You just jump on the train, it takes you right around to Disney Sea. That was an amazing experience, and I'm so glad I consulted the crowd calendar for that, because the crowds were not bad at all. So we were there on a Wednesday, Thursday, and a Friday. Now our flight on Friday was at 5 p.m. and so there is a great service at Disneyland resort there that you can book your transfer straight to the airport. So that's what we did. So we booked our transfer to the airport from the Disneyland Hotel, so we were able to go spend the morning in the park. And then I think checkout was at 11, so we checked out, but they held our luggage for us. And we came back and they delivered our luggage to the area where they were going to pick you up for the shuttle. We got on the shuttle, I want to say it was at 1 o'clock, got to the airport. That made everything really easy. And it was just a really nice end to the trip, because when we first arrived at the airport, we got on the train to take us into Tokyo, because the airport's a little far out, right? It's not in the middle of the city. So if you've ever traveled, you know the airport can't be in the middle of the city. It's a little bit further out. So we had taken the train in that night. When we got off the train that night, it was kind of hard to orient ourselves to find the hotel, but we finally did it. But then having the bus just take you there and drop you right off, even at your gate, that was incredible. So that was a really nice service. That was, it's not free, it is an add-on, but it was definitely something that we took advantage of. And one other thing I forgot to mention is when we first arrived, the first thing we do, and we always do this when we travel out of country, is that we get a SIM card when we arrive, and we replace our SIM cards. So on my phone, I don't even know if they make carrier locked phones anymore, but my phone is unlocked. So I always buy an unlocked phone that's not locked to one like AT&T or Verizon or whatever, so I can change the SIM out as I see fit. And so when we go overseas, the first thing we do at the airport, go buy a SIM card, put the new SIM card in, because you want to have data. You get used to having that GPS and navigation, and you know, we're tied to these things now, unfortunately. Fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at it. But it's cool because we don't have to carry around a paper map for every area and, you know, stuff like that. So it definitely makes things a lot easier. But that is how I planned my very doll-centric Japan trip, because I wanted to go to the A-Zone store. I wanted to visit Volks. I wanted to see all the Playline dolls. But also, you know, I didn't want to, you don't want to do just a trip about dolls. You want to see a lot of cultural things too. So I was able to do all that. One thing I didn't get to do was go to the Wanda shop where they sell the Wanda frogs. And that is because they were closed certain days of the week. So one thing I will caution you about is make sure whatever you want to do is going to be open the day you want to do it. So look at that in advance, because that was something that I had not properly planned for. And so I wasn't able to go there. So check all your hours and things like that before you plan to go. I think this time when everybody's, you know, quarantined at home, this is the perfect time for planning a vacation, because it gives your mind something to look forward to. It gives you something to think about and a goal to work towards, and just, you know, something, like I said, just for fun while you're doing all this. You can have, I could sit and watch for hours those 3 YouTube channels that I talked about just now, just because they're so much fun, and they just make you, they give you that travel bug, and you just want to go do that stuff. So anyway, I hope I've answered all of your questions about my trip to Japan. If you have any other questions, please leave them for me in a comment below, and I will try to answer those for you. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.